Good morning, officially. Good morning. Welcome to our broadcast. So many challenges this morning. Forgive us. We came on, then we were off. Not getting something's happening at the back end. Good morning, folks. Welcome to our broadcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Happy to have all of you on with us this morning. It's a late morning for us. It's a rainy morning for us. Raining cats and dogs, as they say, on an overworked cliche, if there ever was one. Let's hope you're hearing us loud and clear this morning. Folks, we apologize. We've been trying to come on and we don't know what it is. We came on and then we were off again and on again and off again. Forgive us. We're still trying to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Looks like a long shot this morning. Looks like a long shot, but good to have all of you. You know, last night we had our guest, Darren. We had to turn it on. We're flickering on and off. Don't know what's causing that. And we're trying our level best not to have those interruptions. Please and thanks. Please and thanks. We're good to see all of you lovely folks. Another day. Folks, it's Friday the 13th. I won't cause no alarm, but this Friday the 13th, Simone and Sabrina and Diane, Grisandi and Cheryl. We got a lot of stuff happening at GECOM we want to draw to your attention this morning. Quite a few things happening at GECOM. We want to alert you guys on, and we're going to be joined via telephone, hopefully by a guest this morning as well. None other than MP Ganesh Mahipal. So set yourself for that. Let me go. He's here. Sabrina is here. And Lester's here. I mean, not Ganesh is here. Let me go. He's on the live this morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. It says, big up Shirat. Yep. Joy Wong says, devil is a liar. Good morning to all of you, wherever you're joining us from. Ensure that you share the live for us this morning. Smash that emoji button as well. We want as many persons to get the valid, credible information. You know, lots happening at GECOM. That the devil is a liar. The devil is a liar. How are you folks doing? Rainy day. If you're gonna be out, make sure you walk with your umbrella, your raincoat, your long boots, whatever it is. Don't let no rain steal your joy. Don't let no rain steal your joy, folks. Happy to have all of you with us this morning. Share the live for us as we come on. Smash that emoji button as well. You know, the technology failing us this morning won't allow us to do all the fancy graphics and so on, perhaps. But we're going to see with it. We're happy that you guys are here with us. You know, that's the main thing. If we don't have you all, then we got cause to worry. But good morning again. So good to see so many of you out early this morning. Early that we started making the rounds. Some of y'all fast. Got to see what's happening on Facebook. Who is saying what is saying who. Please and thank you. We're in this very silly season. Silly electoral season, folks. And happy to be here with all of you. And I want to go right off the bat this morning, even though the graphics in, Shamila, we're going to be joined by MP Ganesh Mahipal, if I can only figure myself out. Because we want to talk to some of these issues that have been transpiring at GECOM. Right? We want to speak to some of these issues. Please and thank you. It's a lot happening, folks, and we gotta stay on the forefront of it. Right? Don't let it come around, we funny. Hope I got the right number and so on. Lyndon Gill, you know, just last evening they're telling us, GECOM, that they have switched up the registration form for candidates, while candidates have already been filling up the original form, the old form that came to them. You know, and it's not fair. Ganesh, do we have you?
Morning, I'm driving.
All right, Ganesh is driving, so he can be hands-free. We don't have to.
I don't have the phone in my hand. Board of that particular day.
The,
So I don't want anybody to accuse me of using my phone while driving.
So y'all hear that? Don't come wrong, Ganesh funny this morning. He's a law-abiding citizen. He doesn't have a handheld device. I think that's the charge. You know, driving and having a handheld device is dashboard held.
Dashboard, correct.
Ganesh, I didn't want to waste any time this morning. I really wanted to speak to this latest issue coming out of GECOM And I'm going to be raising several of them, and I hope you can help guide our audience through the discussion this morning. The latest being this change to the registration form, nomination form at GECOM, when GECOM sent stakeholders, political parties, individuals who are going to be contesting, who are desirous of contesting the September 1, 2025 general and regional elections, already sent them the original form, the old form, you might call it now. They've already begun that painstaking work, only to be now interrupted by this new form championed by the chief elections officer. Talk to us about that, guy.
Of course, by saying that the electorate must know that participating in regional and general elections and local government elections, which are the two elections that GECOM is mandated to ensure is held free and fair, that it requires several things that you have to do. Several requirements have to be met.
Mm-hmm.
And for regional and general elections, political parties that are interested in participating ought to satisfy requirements, which require them to get supporting signatures to show that they do have a presence in regions, and for the national top-up list, they also have to get signatures. I think 300 and something signatures. And for the regional and geographic, 170 thereabout signatures. So this is nothing new. All elections, this has happened. And the problem is, GECOM, a couple of mornings before regional and general elections, decided to change the format of the forms that are used to acquire these signatures. And it baffles me because you had 5 years from 2020 to now to get your act together to ensure that you are in full preparation mode to facilitate. Now, Guyana is a small country when compared to the world, so to speak, but we are a big country when compared to our population and where it is located in terms of our population density. So political parties that have already begun the process of acquiring signatures and so on the old form will now have to go and redo all of that to satisfy GECOM's requirement because of this latest decision to change the format of the form. Now, outside of that, that is what it is directly. But I believe that GECOM has a sinister motive at hand to make such decisions now in the middle of a campaign season.
Yeah, apologies there. The folks were saying song, song, song. Do do we have it now?
Well, you have to tell me up to where they are because
Ho-
I may have to repeat from the beginning.
You see, I did say we got several challenges this morning. Folks, Ganesh was talking about Ganesh. Let's touch back from the very top because I don't know where we might have left off. Let's go from the very top of the challenges we have in terms of the chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission not seeming to know what she's doing.
Yes, and I'm
Apologies,
saying
folks.
to you that 5 years she sat there, and only now they have decided to change the form when political parties are already engaged in the activity of soliciting signatures, getting recommendations and endorsement for their respective requirements that they must meet in order to satisfy what is needed to participate in the elections. And to know that a couple of mornings before the regional and general elections, GECOM has now decided to change the form, the format of the form, which they had already put out as the form to be used, which they had already given the stakeholders and say, go out in the fields and get what you have to get to reach the requirements. I think GECOM has a sinister motive at hand. I think Claudette is behind this sinister motive, and I think it is deliberately being done to probably remove participation of parties from these elections. Now, the People's National Congress reform, the Partnership for National Unity, and the People's Progressive Party, I'm sure, will not be disenfranchised because they have structures and machinery across the country. But when we talk about participatory democracy and allowing people to participate, this seems to be a direct move to hamper the small parties. And that cannot be right. Now, I'm saying to you that Claudette has proven that she is a waste of time, that she does not seem to want free, fair, and credible elections in this country. 5 years after, now you're going to see to change the format of a form that has been used in the past. Now, I don't doubt that there were issues in the past with the PPP and satisfying these signatures because,
We saw
as I
that.
said before,
We saw that.
in 2016, they had people's name on the form endorsing them, and people had to come out and publicly say, no, they're not supporting them. 2018, we had the same problem. 2023, we had the same problem. So PDP is known for fraudulent behavior. But I'm saying all of that should have informed the GECOM within the 5 years period that Claudette was sitting there. And it is clear in my view that this is a sinister move and it has wicked connotations. And Claudette is really engaging in activities to further complicate the electoral process, adding more anomalies to the already existing fraudulent system that they have in place. And it is not in the best interest of the Guyanese people to provide us with free, fair, and credible elections, which we deserve.
Yeah. So that is just one of the issues. This new amendment to this form that can impact, especially on the small party, Ganesh, that could be deemed as a voter suppression, in a sense, mechanism by the PPP and by GECOM. Ganesh, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right.
And you see, it also complicates even for the big parties too, because they have to go back and redo what they have already been engaged in.
Correct.
So they have to go and restart it. So it is a telling situation in terms of resources to get it done. It is a telling situation in terms of the deadline because even though GECOM has now changed the form, they have not extended the deadline. You still have to reach it by nominations day. So all they have done there really is to curtail the time that political parties will use to acquire these signatures to reach the requirement, and they have a smaller window to do it now. So it is as though GECOM has complicated the matter by deliberately engaging in something that will make it worse.
Exactly. So folks, this is where we are. And I'll walk through a number of issues this morning because I want you, the members of the public, to know where we are. And there's another reason why I want us to do this today, Because you see, when these issues happen, um, as they've been happening consistently, even though sporadically, and the two things might seem to oppose each other, but bear me out, hear me out. When you look at them together, when you see what they've been doing over the last 5 years, and you look at them together, then you can see the picture of what they're doing. So Ganesh, this is today, right? In the almost in the dark of night, we saw GECOM put out a statement on this around 2 o'clock this morning, right? Put out this statement on this new change. But in addition to that, Ganesh, in addition to that, we now see the PPP executive, central executive member, the PPP attorney general, now is advising GECOM on legal issues, on electoral issues. Now, this is a glaring conflict of interest, if there ever was one. And you know, these are people who are very big on conflict of interest. This is a humongous conflict of interest where you got the attorney general who is a PPP member, and no doubt is going to be a candidate in these elections. He is now guiding and advising the PPP on these electoral matters. This is madness. The impact of this, providing this legal advice to GECOM, right, a supposedly independent body, it exposes the commission to political influence. This is not good at all for democratic process. And this perceived lack of legal autonomy severely compromises GECOM's impartiality. And of course, it raises concerns about the integrity of its legal decisions, which are crucial to the conduct of these elections. MP Mahipol.
Sharad, you have to understand that the PPP is well informed as to their weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
I think they are well informed that the population is fed up with them. Over the 5 years, the population saw what can be deemed and termed as friends, families, and favorites benefiting significantly, whilst the majority suffers. In an abundance, with the abundance of resources, oil resource to be exact, there has been no proper increase in the lives, in terms of betterment, in the lives of our ordinary, hardworking, tax-paying Guyanese. And the PPP knows that they're very vulnerable. And they also know that the next 5 years of Guyana will see way more financial resources coming from oil than we have right now. They know that we will have more FPSOs operating, that we will be extracting more barrels of oil from our resource. They know that the wealth will be far way more significant. So a lot is at stake here.
Correct.
And the wicked PPP that wants to have full control of the monies for this country and to continue to do things that are going to be unaccountable, non-transparent, and bad governance, they want to fight to keep that. If this government was serious about ensuring accountability, transparency, and good governance, they would have put mechanisms in place to ensure we have those things. They did not. The population saw that. So what is their last resort 5 years after? Their last resort is to influence, to dominate, and control the elections body that is responsible for free, fair, and credible elections. Because they will not win the people's vote. They will not win the plurality or the popularity of the people's vote. So they have to have their hands in the GECOM's affair, and Claudette is permitting it. Claudette is permitting it. So she is a part of the fraudulent cabal that is moving in a direction to disenfranchise people's will and to reflect what the people will vote for, which is in a free, fair, and clear, credible elections.
Yeah.
We will not be having that under Claudette. He is demonstrating that the people's will not be reflected come September 1, and all her actions, the most recent being to change the form requirement to signatures, is complicating the issue further. To solicit advice from a man who has an interest in becoming Attorney General again, who will be a candidate on the People's Progressive Party, is adding insult to injuries, and it is further adding to the many anomalies that already exist. So GECOM has no intentions of fixing themselves. Claudette seems to not understand, or maybe she understands that she's just being wicked, Claudette, that she is perhaps the most powerful person right now in the country with the elections on her hands.
Yeah.
And she has to do, as a judge, as a former judge, she should do the right thing to act in the interest of the country, to give free, fair, and credible elections. And we are not seeing that. We are not getting that from GECOM, and it's a sad state of affairs in this democratic land. All I will say, Sharon, to the people of Guyana and those who have to vote, go out, vote resoundingly, and vote against the People's Progressive Party. Know that we will have our scrutineers, we will have our counting agents, and we will have our alternate agents in the respective polling stations to be our eyes and our ears, to reflect what we want them to reflect. But the wickedness of the GECOM right now requires greater scrutiny.
Yeah.
And the ABC EU countries, the America, British, European Union, and Canada, I trust they're taking note of what is going on. We raised these concerns with them, and I trust they are taking note of what is going on. But we are in a very sad situation as a country, all because a group of kleptomaniacs in the People's Progressive Party wants to hold on to power because they know what is yet to come from the oil resources.
Correct. So, folks, if you're just joining us, we're joined by telephone by MP Ganesh Mahi Paul, who's the Shadow Minister for Local Government and Regional Development. And we're talking about some concerns out of GECOM. We discussed this new change they have to the registration nomination forms overnight, when forms have already been in circulation by GECOM, sent forms to the stakeholders, and now they're changing the rules mid-course. And then we see the intervention of the Attorney General at the GECOM level, advising GECOM on electoral matters, never mind his own conflict of interest, being a candidate, being a member of the ruling party, sitting in the central executive of that party, and that obvious conflict of interest there, advising GECOM. All of a sudden, they have refused to hire an independent lawyer, an independent legal counsel, and they have now been receiving advice from the Attorney General. Folks, this would not fly in any other country, and we're not going to take it sitting down either. That being said, the other issue here, Ganesh, is them rigging the system, not only of this recent vintage with the AG, but the very appointment of the Chief Elections Officer, Vishnu Prasad, the very appointment of the Deputy Chief Elections Officer, Mr. Giddings, as well. If folks would remember, Giddings was the person who took the SOPs out on the server unannounced to anybody for hours outside of GECOM. God knows where he went with the server, and he was never held to account for that. As a matter of fact, he was promoted to the very role he has now as a result of that. Ganesh? So this thing is set. It's a set piece.
Sherrod, the rigging of elections 2025 began when there was a change to the way in which a person can go about to acquire a birth certificate.
All right.
And when they changed the rules for us to acquire a birth certificate, it was done primarily to get people on the list of electors. And that is why we have this bloated list of over 700 plus thousand people.
Mm-hmm.
So the PPP began the machinery of rigging since
Same thing.
Since that time.
Rigging and riggery, same thing.
As a set of other events unfolded, all facilitated by Claudette. It's just wickedness at its best.
Ganesh,
and the electorate will have to signal their vote resoundingly against this regime.
Ganesh has touched on another very important aspect of our discussion. There is the legislative changes that they have done to facilitate, as he has mentioned there very clearly, this kind of rigging. And what he has touched on there is the amendments to the Registration of Births and Deaths Act that was done in the National Assembly. And this now facilitates anybody. You can go to a Tushau in any community in this country and swear that I born Guyanese, and you get a birth certificate. Isn't it that easy, Ganesh? With the amendment of it?
Yes, it's that easy. It's that easy. When the system we had before is that if you need a birth certificate, you have to prove by way of the school you attended, your clinic card, and so many other proofs you have to provide to show that you are indeed a born Guyanese. Now it's just you saying, look, I was born here, give me a paper to show sign it off. We know some of these to shows where they are aligned to, and they will do it just to facilitate.
Correct. So that was the amendment of the, I want to be specific, because we're walking through these issues one by one. That is the simplifying how you get a birth certificate that benefits them. Because remember, we can come to another important aspect, and I'll show you how this is tremendously relevant. This amendment here of the Registration of Births and Death Amendment Act of 2021 that facilitates this kind of wholesale riggery that's happening now. You get a birth certificate, that sets the stage for you to get a passport, that sets the stage for you to vote, and you can just imagine where it goes from there. But we've not only had that amendment, Ganesh, we have also had the amendment to the Representation of the People's Act, right? Representation of the People's Act, and in particular, the removal of the residency requirement, Ganesh. Talk to your audience about that.
Yes, all of these are events that happened in a process, because elections is really a process. And a series of amendments at the legislative arm of government has, with a one-seat majority, moved to change all of these things. Not complicating the system, but simplifying the riggery, if we're going to use that term going forward, to simplify the rigging so that it becomes easier on the part of the PPP to retain power. And that is the unfortunate situation in what we are supposed to be a democracy that represents one person, one vote that is legitimate.
Yeah.
And legitimacy is no longer the means on which GECOM is operating. They're operating primarily to put back the PPP there. And we have to stand up against that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be bad for business.
Ganesh, in addition to that amendment to what we commonly call ROPA, this is the Representation of People Act, there was a recent amendment as well to that very act. This is the piecemeal way in which they're going about trying to piece together this rigging that they're doing. There was a recent amendment to that act. I think this was last week before the last, within the last 3 weeks. Another amendment to this act, all to facilitate what's going on at GECOM.
Yes, you're correct. Where they include supernumerary officers now instead of returning officers. But Sharon, I'll have to ask to be excused now because I'm really running out of time.
No trouble at all. I'm gonna walk our audience through some of the other things here. Ganesh, thank you very much for coming through.
You are well informed, and I'm sure you are doing an excellent job at bringing it to the people's attention. But the people must know that their vote is what is at stake here, and they have to ensure they vote wise.
Thank you very much, Ganesh. Thank you very much again. So, folks, those are some of the issues. We've had all of these amendments that go with one purpose, to bring them boys back. So we've had 2 amendments to the same legislation in the last 5 years, right? Any care in government, any government that wants legislative change would have said, look, let's sit down together and see where the shortcomings are. The Chief Justice herself, Senator Electoral Law, quite recently, are all over the place. The electoral laws of this country. You got to know physics, chemistry, you got to know some mathematics, you got to know medical sciences, and a whole host of other things to understand the confusion that is our electoral laws all over the place. Now, if we want to harmonize all of that, bring all of it in one place, we could have done that in a systematic way, but they've gone about it in a very piecemeal way. They amend piece of rope here, they amend piece of rope in there. The CDC working out, they come back and they amend it here. That cannot work. So we have had amendments to the Representation of the People Act twice in the last 5 years, and it might come back because Parliament has not been dissolved as yet, even though we have an impending election. They've amended the Registration of Births and Death Act of 2021, again simplifying the way persons can get a birth certificate. That's why I said to you, if we don't look at these things together, right, they might make no sense individually, but when you look back and you see this sudden amendment to the registration process for candidates and so on, in the middle of when persons have already started doing this exercise, thanks to GECOM sending out a form before this new one here, right? The AG inserting himself into GECOM's affair now as legal advisor. All of these people handpicked to hold certain key roles at GECOM. All of that spells one thing, and it didn't stop there. It didn't stop there. In 2023, we had them brazenly redrawing the electoral boundaries. You call this in electioneering, in politics, gerrymandering. They are moving the boundary lines to give themselves the electoral advantage. Right? They were doing it so brazenly. GECOM chairman herself had to step in, right, and say that the minister, this was Darmlal, had exceeded his authority regarding these constituency changes, flagrantly redrawing boundary lines to give themselves an advantage. So, for instance, you might have a constituency that favors APNU AFC, but on the periphery of that constituency, just on the outside, you might get some numbers that favors the PPP. They redraw the boundary line to bring those additional people into the boundary. It's wickedness. And that is why you heard MP Maipal say that this rigging started long ago. When you look and see what they have done together, then you can see the impact. And one of those things is what we're talking about now, the gerrymandering of the boundary lines, the redrawing of the boundary lines to suit them. This happened in 2023. Folks, look, one of the other issues now relates to the very amendment of the Registration of Birth and Death Act, right? And this is the Venezuelan factor. Now, we love our Venezuelan brothers and sisters. We love them. They've had some hardship in their countries. They've come to us for some help, and we've been helping them. The fact that we have some very porous borders, we haven't been able to do it in a very structured way. The Foreign Affairs Shadow Minister, Amanzo Walton, this year, has repeatedly in the National Assembly called for a migration policy in which we know who is with us. There's a registration system. We can keep track. There is background checks. There is as much as we can. So it's done in a very structured way, right? A very structured way. The government says, they have said that their long-term objective is to integrate Venezuelan migrants into our society. A very, very dangerous precedent. Very, very dangerous. And coupled with their alarming omission to establish a comprehensive framework for migrants. My God, where are we going? And so there's been a consistent call, not only by the shadow minister, but different stakeholders. We've seen this in newspaper editorials as well, in particular Starbuck News, which highlighted this need for a very structured, strategic, and responsible migration policy, while noting that unregulated migration could have a strain on social services. And you also have attached to this some national security risk. So it's all of these issues we are contending with, when they could have been hammering out this thing, not only for electoral purposes, right, but that we have a more structured society, and we don't have what I saw some other pundits calling a soft invasion, because we know where we are in relation to our territorial integrity and the Venezuelan claim on that. So we started this 5-year tenure with the government saying, oh, we have about 40 Venezuelans here with us. We got 23 in Region 4, 23 Venezuelans in Region 4. And now you're hearing estimates of up to 100,000 Venezuelans could be with us in this country. Now, if anybody could go to show a JP or something like that and swear, I born Guyanese, and get a birth certificate and vote, you all see where we are in this country? You all see where we are in this country? Which brings us to yet another issue. Another issue. Tell me if you all know about this one. Tell me if you all know about this one. Whatever happened to the census? The 2022 census. That would give us that demographic breakdown. What has ever happened to that? $2 billion later. Since December, they promised us a preliminary report on it, a draft report on it. What has ever happened to the 2022 $2 billion census? Look how long it has been delayed. Now, they're telling us that preliminary figures again show that you have thousands of Venezuelans who are here. Maybe they don't want to show us the thousands of their supporters, their traditional supporters who have left. Why is the government delaying the census report? Why? And we're told that this critical delay, this critical omission by the PPP government can directly impact GECOM's ability to accurately plan for the elections, right? To delineate fair boundaries, right? Accurate and up-to-date census, we're being told, is fundamental to these issues, fundamental to equitable representation, and that its continued delay, particularly with a changing demographic landscape, can compromise foundational data that is integral to electoral planning. And as I said, delineation or delimitation of boundaries. And all of this, again, I say, when taken together, you see the kind of picture it is painting? You see the kind of picture it is painting? Now, add this to that, and tell me if there is not wickedness. Since the last election, remember we told you this new change to the registration of candidates and so on. Just this morning, GECOM come in the middle of stakeholders registering their candidates, filling up the requisite forms and so on. Forms that GECOM sent out. They send new forms now. Right? Will there be other changes? Are there other changes coming? I said all that to say this. Since 2020 election, right? You have had observer missions, international stakeholders who have made several recommendations for changes, for electoral changes. Several, not one of them, have been looked at, much more to be implemented. Not one of them have been looked at, much more to be implemented. So there has been a consistent non-implementation of these recommendations made by credible observer missions, and you guys would know them by heart. You got the EU, you got the Canadians, you got the British, you got the Carter Center, right? You got the Commonwealth. CARICOM made several observations, ways in which we can improve the system. Could you imagine? Not 5 implemented, not 10, not 15, from about 200, 300 recommendations. Zero. Zero. You may have some people on the live right now who might talk about, oh, these riggers, and the rig and the rig. And GECOM has made no move to even review the shortcomings based on the last elections. Much more to implement the recommendations made by these credible international observer missions, such as the EU, such as the Commonwealth. Right? Now, this kind of a mission to act on the expert impartial recommendations for electoral reform, what clearer indication do we want that the government and GECOM are unwilling to address the identified weaknesses and to enhance transparency and fairness? What clearer message we want than that? They haven't looked at one of them. Because they're running from transparency. They're running from fairness. They're rigging it. They're rigging it. And what you see in broad daylight, folks, we ain't taking lampstick, right, to look for it nighttime. We are not taking lampstick to look for it nighttime. You all remember the EID cards? You all remember the advent of the EID cards? Thankfully, the whole thing failed. They were coming to replace your national ID cards with EID cards, spending millions of US dollars already transferred to the company that they identified. To date, we got one EID card. That is the only plus in this whole thing here. All of that is part of this harebrained scheme, you know. You remember the EID cards? You remember that saga? Let me see if you all remember this one. You see, every day brings up a new challenge, and you might forget. When you look at these issues together, it paints a certain picture. See if you remember this one. You remember the biometrics issue? Okay. The people who come consistently and talk about who rig, they often say you gotta be absolved from your sins, you know. But he taking all the riggers in by the handful who have crossed over. Right? You're no longer a rigger, but he absolved you. Now, propositions that will vastly enhance our electoral integrity, them boys turn the face to that. They want to talk about the recommendations from the EU, from the Commonwealth, from the British, from the Canadians. Carter Center, out the place. How do you face the Carter Center now? Knowing that they look at one of them recommendations from the Carter Center. How? They turn the face on biometrics, saying it's too late, but yet they could come at the midnight hour and bring changes to the registration form for the candidates. Oh, they fought biometrics tooth and nail. They fought biometrics tooth and nail. Y'all were here with us. Y'all know the whole thing better than we know the whole thing. Better than we know it. So our simple task this morning was to just remind you of these signposts that got us here, as we saw yet another infraction, compliments of GECOM in this electoral process. This new form, you got to fill up and go back and swear and all kinds of silly things. You see, in the middle of the process, when GECOM introduces these things, they don't interrupt any timeline and so on. Let the opposition commissioners have an idea. You will hear all kinds of story that prevents them from improving the system. All kinds of story. So folks, these things, they paint a certain picture of GECOM. And it's not easy to come out and impugn your election body. It should not be done, like a marriage is said, entered into likely and unadvisedly. Right? It's not an easy thing to do. But when you see all of these issues, one after the next, what is one left to say? When you see in broad daylight, you must take lampstick to go and look for it nighttime? No. We ain't going to take lampstick to go and look for it nighttime. And that is why one of the things the leader of the opposition, Mr. Norton, has been saying for a very long time, I give him credit for that we need the observers here even more early. We need the observers here more early. The people come later when Anil pulled back from GECOM. I said, oh, look, everything look good, man. Everything is up and up. Right? But they don't know that a man who can be perhaps voted for, he had a hand in crafting all of these rules and policy and guidelines and so on. And so the thing is set in a certain way to favor them. To favor them. But Guyanese, all of these things are on the ballot. All of these issues are on the ballot. Do not lose sight of it. Please and thank you. Do not lose sight of them. GECOMites pass this country and by extension, the government. And I always say, those persons who support this installed regime, the onus is on you to hold the government by a higher standard, right? Ask yourself, if Lowenfield, Myers and Mingo and whoever else had brought such a recommendation, not even a recommendation at this point, right? Brought such a rule in the middle of registering a candidate, you gotta go back now. So if you had moved with your registration from the bottom of the Guyana map, you're coming up to the top now, registering your supporters and so on. You bring some new thing, you gotta go right back down to the bottom. Folks, getting access to people in this country is not the easiest thing. Right? The money it entails to get from point A to point B, you could travel to Trinidad 5 times. The kind of money it takes to get from point A to point B in your own country. So it's not the simplest exercise. And that is why we ask the question, knowing all of this, what is the ulterior motive of GECOM? What's the mischief they're trying to create there? That is why you heard MP Ganesh Maipal says, it must be that they're trying to suppress the vote. You see, if Muhammad's people can't vote for him the way they want to, if APNU people and AFC people can't vote for them the way they want to, y'all see where we are? Y'all see where we are? Right? And you know, PP supporters who are on the live, you can continue to bury your heads in the sand. Do that at your own peril. But ask yourself, if the shoe are on the other foot, oh, y'all be upturning vehicles by Pegasus. You see? Y'all be shutting the country, y'all be pelting school bus with kids and so on in it. Y'all be beating police officers and so on. Let us address these problems now. Don't let us go back down the road to those events. Do not. And that is why people are saying the PP are setting the stage for unrest in this country when they continue to do these things. When they continue to do these things. And these are just a couple of issues we pulled out that directly impacts on GECOM. Just a couple of them. And I'm almost certain you guys can see the picture already. You guys can connect the dots and see what's happening here. Audrey and Frank and Humi, Neville and Noel, you can piece the thing together and see where we're going. We're going up or we're going down? We're getting better, we're getting worse. So I thought this morning to just shift a little away from our usual programming with all of the other issues and honing on this one here because GECOM, you better get yourself together. Get yourself together. They're overdoing it now. They're overdoing it now. So taking these couple issues into consideration, you all know what's on the ballot. You all know what's at stake here. Folks, hold a focus. Hold a focus and hold the line. Right? I say hold the line, folks. That's going to do it for us this morning. That's going to do it for us this morning. We're going to see you guys on the other side of the day. Shamila and Standing Tall, these fancy names, Bernice Dobson and all the other folks joining us this morning. When you look at them individually, they might say, there's the one. And you look at it together and say, hey, I see y'all coming. I see y'all. That's why they don't like me. That's why I can't go over, you know. Like the too wicked, stinking dirty. Don't come around with fun with the nonsense. Don't do it. Don't do it. Share the live before you go, folks. Smash that emoji button so that others that the valuable and credible information, and we can leave it there today. Have a fantastic rest of the day and stay safe.